Let us pray. Dear God, if I have anything worth saying, please open their ears to hear me. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, for you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. As many of you may already know, in our home, Sarah and I have 2 beagle puppies. Daisy's about 1.5 to 2 years old, and Raven, she's just over a year old. And Raven's the little one, and she loves the snow. She loves everything about the snow, eating it, playing in it, peeing on it. She loves the snow. But see, Raven, she's kind of a small beagle. She's full grown, but she's tiny, right? She's a puppy, so she's very active. So she's a lean dog. There's not a lot of extra fat on my puppy Raven. And so she's very active, but I don't know if you remember, about 1.5 weeks ago, it was just so bitter cold, right? It was like single digits cold, but it was beautiful. The sun was out, it looked so nice. And Raven, she loves to play in the snow, and so, we've got one of those sliding glass doors in our back, on the back side of our house, and it's just like a big window of fun, right? She looks out, she sees how it makes, she sees all that snow. I mean, if you leave her on the line out back, she'll just dive headfirst into a snowbank that's bigger than she is, and she'll just pop out the other side covered in powder. She loves playing in the snow, and so she gets really excited. And so she'll go to the door, like 1.5 weeks ago, she went to the door, and she whines. And I'm like, no, Raven, I know you don't want to go out there. It's so cold. When it gets to that temperature, it's just not even fun to be out there. I told her, no, Raven, you don't want to go out there. She whines again. Then she puts her paws up on the glass door, and she just kind of looks over her shoulder at me. And it's kind of like the child equivalent of like, please take me outside. All right, fine. All right, so I get up, I put the boots on, I put the coat on, I get my gloves, I got the other leash. Daisy gets really excited, so she wants to go out too, so I got both leashes. And then I open the door, and that icy blast just comes flying in the door, and it is so cold, and Raven just does a 180, completely changes her mind. No, I don't want to go out there. She'll dig her paws into the carpet, like, no, I made a mistake, I forgot that it's so cold, I do not want to go out there. But me, the human, I'm committed, right? I got up, I'm off the couch, we're going outside. And so sometimes I'll have to step past her into the cold and pull her out into the snow. Once she's out there, she has a good time, but it can be very difficult to take that first step. See, sometimes in life, with every goal, it's easy to look through the window and see what you want. It's easy to do the visioning and setting the goals, to picture how good the future's going to be, but then sometimes when you prepare to take that first step, reality sets in like an icy blast. It can be very hard to take that first step. Of course I want to diet, exercise, and be fit, but then the alarm goes off the next morning, and I actually have to get up and do it. Oh, it's tough. It's the way it is with my puppy, that's the way it is with our personal goals, and that's the way it is with our relationship with God. Today is a part 2 of our series on Moses. We're just sort of delving into all the stories of Moses. And what we'll see today is that Moses, one of the heroes of the faith, he had some trouble getting started too. And so today we're working with 2 different stories when Moses talks to God. And our first passage is Exodus 3. And it's pretty famous, pretty familiar passage, right? The burning bush. We know that story. Now to set the stage just a little bit, last time we talked about Moses, 2 weeks ago, I wasn't here last week, but last time we talked about Moses, he was the baby in the basket, right? And the mother put him in the river and she let go, and then the Egyptian princess found him. And so Moses is raised royalty. He grows up as if he's royalty in the Egyptian household, not the Hebrew. And so then one day, actually what we skipped, before we get to our scripture for today, what we skipped is that one day Moses, as an adult, went down into Egypt, and he watched as an Egyptian slave driver was beating one of the slaves. So there's this Egyptian guy attacking a Hebrew slave. And Moses steps in, and he stands up for the Hebrew guy, and he ends up killing the Egyptian slave driver. He ends up killing the slave driver, and he buries him in the sand. And he's mortified. He thinks someone's going to find out that he did this. And so then he runs away. Moses runs away from Egypt to get away from the consequences of what he did. And he goes as far away from Egypt as he can. He becomes a shepherd. He gets married. He's never going back. Moses is done with Egypt. But God wasn't quite done with Moses. And that's where our story begins today in chapter 3. So it says in chapter 3, It says, so one day Moses was tending to the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock far into the wilderness and came to Sinai, the mountain of God. And there the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire from the middle of the bush. And Moses stared in amazement, though the bush was engulfed in flames. It didn't burn up. This is amazing, Moses said. Why isn't that bush burning up? I must go see this. I gotta go check this out. And so the amazing thing, the incredible thing about the burning bush, like I said with the children, is that it can serve as a metaphor for the life of a Christian. The bush was covered in flames, but it did not burn. In our lives as Christians, some people will tell you that if you're a Christian and you're close to God, everything's going to go well for you, but that's just not true. It's just not. Sometimes the flames come, and when struggles and trials come our way, when we are engulfed in flames, we will not burn. When we go through a struggle, when we endure, when we survive, when we lean on God, our life becomes a witness. Those flames become a testament to God's power. When people watch you go through a struggle and survive and become better and stronger on the other end, they're going to wonder, like watching a fire on a flame and it's not burning up. They want to know why. Like Moses wanted to know why. And your life becomes a witness to other people. And so it continues in verse 4, and it says, when the Lord saw that Moses was coming to take a closer look, God called to him from the middle of the bush, Moses, Moses. Here I am, Moses replied. Do not come any closer, the Lord warned. Take off your sandals, for you are standing on holy ground. Now, can I ask the dumb question? What makes ground holy? What is so special about that dirt? What makes a place, a building, holy? What makes a person holy? The answer to all three. We got an answer over here. The answer to all three. Holiness comes from the presence of God. There's nothing special about dirt in this story, right? There is nothing special about a building. There's nothing even special about a person. But then when God shows up, he gives people purpose. He gives us value. He can turn a building into a temple, and he turns dirt into something so much more. You ever talk to someone and they're like, oh, you can't curse because we're in church? In case I haven't been clear about this in the past, if it's wrong here, it's wrong everywhere, right? God is not limited to these walls. The Christian life doesn't stop just because you walked out that door. God doesn't come here because this is just such an amazing, special place. No, God comes here and makes this a special place. That's why this place is awesome, because we know God is here. God shows up and makes this a special place. And so the story keeps going in verse 6. And it says, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And when Moses heard this, he covered his face because he was afraid to look at God. The moment that Moses finds out that this burning bush thing that he's looking at, as soon as he figures out that it's God, he panics. He's terrified. He covers his face because he's so afraid to be seen and to see God. Now, I point this out because things change a lot for Moses and God. This is just the very first time they ever have contact. And so we fast forward 30 chapters, and Moses and God are chatting again. But it's very, very different. Moses has a very different attitude. Basically, Moses is asking God, who's going to be with us when we go into the promised land? I want to make sure you're going to be there with us. Who's going to be with us? And God said, I will be there with you personally. I'm going to come with you. And so, in verse 18, Moses responds, okay, then show me your glorious presence. Show me your glorious presence. And God says in verse 21, okay, look, stand near me on this rock. As my glorious presence passes by, I will hide you in the crevice of the rock and cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand and let you see me from behind, but my face will not be seen. Now, it's a strange story. I've always thought this is a very weird thing for God to do. But it shows us two very important things. First, God is so awesome, we can't even handle it. God is so incredible and perfect. It's melt your face off amazing, right? I mean, literally, we can't stand in the presence of God. He is so incredible, so perfect, and so pure that we can't withstand it without help. But the second thing is actually more important, is Moses' shift in tone. With the burning bush, like the first time he talks to God, what does he do? He covers his face, he's afraid and he's embarrassed. But then over those 30 30 chapters, lots of things happen. And Moses gets to know God, and what does he say this time? Show me more. I want to see your glorious presence. Show me as much as I can handle. And so he gets to know God. But that's kind of how it is when you're getting to know God. It's awkward at first. You hide your face. Anybody remember, I mean this is tough, but anybody remember the very first time you ever prayed? I remember for me, and it was awkward. I mean, I prayed with my parents when I was really little, right? I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just learning or whatever. But I remember the first time I consciously prayed. It was in my bedroom, and it's awkward, right? You're kneeling, you're doing the hand thing like you're supposed to. You're saying the words you think you're supposed to say. But it kind of feels like you're talking to the wall. It's uncomfortable that first time. The same goes for just about everything in the Christian life. I mean, talking to other people about God, it's weird, right? Like talking to people, not church people, other people, right? Talking to them about the stuff in here, talking about how important God is, that's awkward, that's hard to do. Inviting people to church, that takes some getting used to. Giving my money away so that we can help strangers, you know, that feels uncomfortable. Everything in the Christian life. But the more you do these things, the more you start to connect with others, the more you start to get out of it. And then the more you're going to want. The more you start to enjoy God's presence. For example, imagine you're visiting a church for the very first time. And you've never been there, and you don't know how to do things, you don't know where to go, and you don't want to like accidentally sit in somebody's spot, right? And you're looking at the coffee area, and you're like, oh, am I allowed? Is that for everyone? I don't know what the rules are. You know, you don't want to offend. It's awkward, you're uncomfortable. But that's the way it is kind of the first time you do anything in life. Why do you think it's so important to have greeters and ushers and a welcome center in our church? Because we want to invite these people in to get over that first awkward phase. Because the more we do these things, the more we will get out of it. We forget what that feels like, because a lot of us have been here for generations. You've been here for a long time, you're very comfortable here. For me, I was a pastor's kid, right? The church was basically my second living room. I was maybe a little too comfortable in the church. Growing up in the church, me and my friends would sit in the second pew. Not the first pew, because we needed the first pew. Because we would sit in the second pew and put our feet up on the first pew. Dad's a little busy running the service. He didn't notice, but Mom noticed. She's in the choir loft just staring daggers at us. You know? I was too comfortable. I'm so used to being in the church, but so we forget. Sometimes we forget what it feels like to hide your face behind Mom's skirt when she introduces you to someone for the first time. But give it time. As we get to know God, the more we get out of that relationship, the more we get out of that connection. And like Moses, you'll find yourself asking God, all right, show me more. Show me more. Chapter 3, verse 13. It says, but Moses protested, if I go to the people of Israel and I tell them the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, they're going to ask me, what is his name? What should I tell them? And God replied to Moses, I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent you to me. Sent me to you. So God gives Moses this little formula, right? He says, call me I am. You see, God's name in Hebrew is Yahweh. And Yahweh is actually a verb. It's not a name. It's the verb to be. I am. That's what God is. That's who God is. I am. So he says, tell them I am has sent me. But let me show you something amazing that I discovered this past week when I was reading this. This is Revelations 21. What was God's name, right? I am. Can we say that together? What was God's name? I am. That's right. So that's God's name. So Revelations 21. This is the picture of heaven. I quote it all the time because I love it so much. And it says, look, God's home is now among his people. He will live with them, and they will be his people. God himself will be with them. God will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death, no more sorrow, or crying, or pain. All these things are gone forever. What was God's name again? I am. Now remember, we're replacing I am for God's name. So let me ask you, who will be with them? I am. Who is going to wipe away every tear? I am. Who is going to get rid of sorrow and death and pain? I am. Do you see it? He lives in you. Who's going to do these things? I am. Now, you're not God. I'm not, let's be very very clear, you are not God. But God's presence in your life changes everything. You start that conversation with God, and then God starts to work through you to change the world. Tell them, I am has sent you. He lives in you. Chapter 33, verse 16 says, for your presence among us sets your people and me apart from all the other people on the earth. What's the difference between us and the rest of the world? God's presence. He is with us. One of the big problems in the modern church is a lot of people think that church is all about being a good person. Right? That's why we're here, right? To be good people. That's what makes a good person, right? And a lot of people recently have been asking, why do I need to go to church to be a good person? Why can't I just follow most of the rules? You know, everybody kind of agrees on this certain set of rules, and if I follow most of those rules most of the time, I'm a good person, and that's all you need, right? A lot of us think that. I used to think that. You know, have you ever had that sense that, like, the only good people are supposed to be Christians, right? If you're not a Christian, how can you be a good person? But more and more we're starting to realize that's just not true. As we get to know and as we start to talk with other religions and stuff, like, there are quote-unquote good people who are Jewish, good people who are Muslims, even atheists. I have friends who are atheists. They're good people. They follow the rules most of the time, and that's all you're supposed to do, right? That's all this is about, right? Is following the rules most of the time? No. Church is not a checklist. Church is not about following the rules. Church is about chasing God, about getting close to God. That's the difference between us and everyone else, is that we are trying to be close to God, who pushes us to perfection, which is something greater than the greatest thing that we can possibly imagine. It's not about who can follow the most rules. That was the whole point of Jesus' ministry, right? Jesus came down out of heaven, and he got in the faces of the rule followers, and he looked at them and he said, this is not good enough. He got in their face and said, following the rules isn't going to get you there. Moses got to know God. He started to say, show me more. Show me more. And so we have two responses to this. Number one, ask for more God in your life. Ask for more God in your life. It says in verse 13, if it's true that you look favorably on me, let me know your ways, that I might understand you more fully and continue to enjoy your favor. If it's true that you like me, that you look favorably on me, let me know more, so that I might continue to enjoy your favor. And then in verse 17, the Lord replied to Moses, I will indeed do all that you have asked, for I look favorably on you, and I know you by name. I know you by name. So step one, ask for more God. Our prayer should not be, dear God, please help me to follow the rules better. No, our prayer should be, dear God, show me more. I want to know you. I want to get close to you, because that's what this life is all about. First, ask for more God in your life. Ask God to open your eyes. You won't be shy at first. It's awkward, you have to get used to it. It takes some time. In every relationship, we grow closer to people. First, ask for more God in your life. And then second, answer God's call. Because if you ask, he's going to show up. And when he shows up, answer that call. Moses ran away. Moses was done with Egypt. We don't really talk about that a lot, because he's such a big deal. But Moses was a murderer. Right? He killed someone and buried the guy and ran away. He didn't own up to it. He didn't. No, he ran away. And yet God called him back. God called Moses, Moses. And Moses said, here I am. For those of you who haven't been to church in a while, maybe you've come and visited a few times where you're getting out of the habits or whatever, you want to start coming back to church. Maybe you think you don't belong here. Maybe you've made your mistakes and you feel like you can't go back. Let me just tell you right now, that's nonsense. There's nowhere that I would rather have you be. For all the screw-ups, I have so much to share. I have good news. If you're not a screw-up, I don't have anything to tell you. Right? If you're perfect, I got nothing for you. But if you're a screw-up, I have good news. God is still calling out to you. This is where you need to be. God is still watching over you, calling you home. Answer that call. Now, for those of you who have been here for generations, you're very comfortable. God called Moses and sent him back to Egypt. That is the absolute last place that Moses wanted to go. He said, I'm going to need you to go back. It's going to be terrible, and then it's going to be amazing. Sometimes God calls us out of our comfort, out of our pew, to go to where we don't want to go, to the world that we come from, to reach out to those people, to set them free so that they can know God like we know God. First of all, ask for more God in our life, and then when He shows up, answer that call. I am who I am. God tells Moses, I am who I am. And I've always loved that title because it tells us absolutely nothing. Anybody can say that. I am who I am, right? It's an invitation. Come and get to know me. I am who I am. Come and find out more. We see the burning bush, and it's engulfed in flames, and it's bizarre and it's strange. And so we step a little closer to find out a little more. God is with you. He lives in you. God is with us, calling your